up to speed, up to speed, up to speed.
Live from the apocalypse, this is State of the Game. We have two sponsors this week. We are sponsored by sneezing. Surprise! Clean yourself up. You're disgusting. And dropping things on your foot. Ow! So, I am your host, Dano. A top hat of a person. You know what I mean? Like the human top hat. It works. And as a simple introduction, and my co-host is like a bit of a bowler hat of an individual.
Okay.
K Diggy.
The only one not wearing a hat, actually.
Oh, hatless. Hatless.
Man.
Atlas. So you're gonna be all right through. You're gonna get through it. But we're so excited to have Frank from Donnie Darko with us today. For State of the Game. Thank you for being. So I went to Chicago, K Diggy, and we went to Chicago. I got to see this person live at a toy store. And the cool part was I was like in the back of the toy store, whisper talking to Def C throughout the entire event about the different performers' superpowers. And we were both so excited about this person. And what Def C said that I'll never forget was what they don't realize is that he's a rap machine. Like he's a rap monster. Like just as a pure rapper flow, all of that. And that's something I always keep in mind, no matter how ornate, complex, or emotional the content gets, that we're dealing with a monster here. And that monster is KillVonGard. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. Dude. Wow, that was a hell of an intro.
What I do. It's what I do. So I would say and by the way, if you ever like make it big and they make you change your name so they can put your CDs in Walmart or whatever, you got to change it to KissVonGard.
That's beautiful.
Yep.
KissVonGard. Okay, I get that because I could still be KVG. You know.
Yeah, exactly.
No, that's great. That's great. Real quick, I don't want to get off track, but real quick, when we were in that toy store, when we did that show, you got a pack of, what was it, X-Force cards? Is that what it was? And I was like, I don't know what the hell that is. And you explained what it was to me. And I was at a flea market and I picked up an X-Force comic book.
Oh my God. I still got the X-Force cards at my desk.
That's amazing. Yeah, I did a whole little deep dive YouTube rabbit hole like a couple months ago into that whole era of McFarlane and Liefeld and all those guys, and it's pretty interesting little thing, but I digress.
X-Force really was a great like an X-Men for unchecked masculinity. It was just like, we're gonna take this to the next level. That's what it was in the 90s. It was great.
just have rippling giant muscles and just large breasts, just everything big.
Everything big. And that's how we do it here at State of the Game. It's if you go on Twitter, K Diggy is at Rippling Breasts on Twitter. You can
right. Following right now.
Thank you.
There it is. Boom.
Being here. It was a great show, and you destroyed it. And there's so many facets to talk to about your music and your incline, and how it affects everything. You put out a recent album called Life is a Masterpiece.
Yes.
That honestly has had ripple effects through a community of artists. We've talked about like different kinds of artists, right? The ringmaster, the sculptor. We've come up with different kind of things for different kinds of artists. But we need a new term, is what I'm saying, because there's a kind of artist that is relentlessly in pursuit of personal analysis, you know, and and so you that it's maybe I'm going to call it the Dr. Katz MC. But relentless pursuit of personal exploration, and by doing that, they take a hold of their audience in a way that other people can't, right?
Yeah.
And so I think life is a masterpiece. Life is a masterpiece.
It is a masterpiece too.
What was that?
It can be.
Like, I was worried I said life is badass feet or something awful. But so this album is really important because it does everything that kind of Dr. Katz MC album should do, but it works itself around the pitfalls of that kind of album. It finds ways to provide what those albums don't by the choices they make. It's really fascinating for me. Way too much.
What do you think are the pitfalls of a Dr. Katz type album?
Cool. Yeah. The Dr. Katz MC is personally focused, right? And it is introspective and is sharing their life. So the problem is it can get way too fucking heavy. It can get way too fucking heavy. And it can get hard to listen to, you know? I know this personally because, as you know, Kay, in my writing life, I like to write very dense, very intense, character-driven stuff that was not fun for a lot of people, you know? So, and it took me a while to realize, like, they went through a lot of shit today. The person reading this, the person digesting this, went through a lot of shit today. And now I'm giving them my shit. I'm doubling up on their shit.
Doubling up on shit. That's a good point, though. And that's something that I really like try to keep in mind when I'm making this stuff is like, obviously I want it to be open, honest, and, all the things, emotional and stuff like that. But it's something that I was talking a lot about with the Garden State, who executive produced it while we were making it. I was like, I want to make sure that it's not like, I don't want to like traumatize somebody, like during the listening of, like I want I want to strike this balance of like relatability and also like being like, damn, I can't believe you said that, but not like, oh, I don't want to, like I have a lot of trouble listening to like the Kendrick Lamar fight song on his last album when it's him and his girlfriend fighting, because I listened to it once. I never want to hear it again because it brings back, it just puts me in really bad mental state, and I'm just like, no, like it's triggering as fuck, so I trying to figure out how to not be that is sort of the challenge, I think.
It is. The other thing, K Diggy, and I wonder if you noticed this throughout the album. So the other risk of doing an album like this is being pretentious, right? It's very easy to be pretentious. It's surprisingly easy. So the way KVG navigates around that, it's really cool. I don't know if I've heard anybody do it. It's through the vocal doubling, he critiques himself and his artistic choices in the middle of the songs or the end of the songs.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Do you remember this?
It's like a live concession. You know what I mean? Like, before you could even say anything, I'm like, I already know that that's, I'm on top of it. I already know that that's a thing,
Hmm.
Keith, you remember when Jim Gaffigan used to do this in the middle of his stand-up as the hot pocket guy?
I never watched Jim Gaffigan
He,
stand up.
Same.
he had the hot
Same.
pocket thing, and he would do a weird bit, and then he would do the voice of the audience reacting to the bit.
Interesting.
And so that's kind of what this is. It's just on this meta creative level. And so he's often critiquing, oh, that was heavy-handed, or that was, and putting himself in check and taking the air out of it for the audience.
Oh, so I was gonna say, so what do you think that accomplishes?
It tells the audience it's okay. You're not being pretentious. We're not being pretentious because we know that we're silly.
Hmm.
Am I right, KVG? Did I make that up?
Yeah.
No, I think you hit it on the head. I don't think I've heard anybody sort of understand it in that way, really ever. Yeah, I just the depth to pretentiousness is what I'm all about. It's what I'm constantly sort of like trying to get across. It's what the name means and whatnot. Uh, yeah, because at the end of the day, we're just fucking silly grown-ups who are still playing pretend, like we're just like making these worlds and living in them, and it's escapism, and it's like we're having fun here and being silly, and it's serious but it's not serious. Like, I don't know, whenever I talk to artists and like they take themselves like so seriously, I have trouble not being like, relax. Like, it's not that, it's fine. It's, what we do, like what we're doing here is I'm choosing to do this, you know what I mean? Like, you know it's a vocation, as in like I would be doing this no matter what, because I love to do this, and like it's something that I feel I like, it's my outlet. But like, I'm choosing to put it out there. I'm choosing to put myself in, the ether, on the internet, all that, you know what I mean? Like, it's fine. I'm just playing around here, you know what I mean?
Well, and there's a specific one that I remember where you said you were talking about metaphors as like simple ideas that are kind of being overly conveyed.
Mhm.
Just like oftentimes they're a waste of all the sentences it takes to get there. And that's such a really important thing to keep in mind, because if you're creative, you're a creator and you want to just like create,
Mhm.
but you also have to let a little editor live inside your head who's going to
Yes.
tell you, man, that all that shit can just go.
Yeah, in a way, that little editor has a voice in the overdubs of my work, I think.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Now, are you editing in real time, or is it something where like you've laid the rap and then you've gone back to it and been like, let me put the ad libs in?
That's a really good question. Like, well, so when I write a verse, I'm editing as I go. I'm not one of those people that does multiple like drafts. I've heard like other rappers do that, and I just can't understand how someone could do that. For me, once it's like set in stone, it's pretty much set. There's times where I might just put like I might lay down in parentheses like a word that has the rhyme scheme of like the word that I need to place there. But because I'm in such like a sort of like momentum flow, I'm just like, I'm gonna come right back to this like little cluster here, and I'm gonna finish that, but I'm gonna move on to the next thing and continue to thought. But usually it's just my writing process is pacing around this room, and then I come up with a line and I write it down, and then I read it back 17 times, and then I'm like, what's going to come next? And then I pace around. So I don't really write it down until it's like kind of ready to go. And then as far as the dubs go, the overdubbing goes, it's just kind of a reiteration of maybe why I made the decision that I made here, or you know what I mean? Why I chose to say this, that's a sort of how it goes. So I don't really plan the overdubs for the most part. Sometimes I write them down in like little parentheses because I know that I want to say that, but sometimes just kind of off the cuff, or it'll happen when I'm recording it. I'll figure out what I want to say. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
The yeah. No, it's so there's some secret sauce here. Like one of the things, KD, that I think keeps Liam uh from being pretentious is the pure love of hip hop that is present, right? Because, and this is something I'm kind of weird about, because I've been a part of like the poetry scene, spoken word scene, and I've been a part, like I've been reviewing hip hop for a long time. I'm always on the guard for people who aren't really hip hop heads and they just want to do their poetry over beats. And I really, that really rubs me the wrong way. I mean, I love poetry. I'll read your book of poetry, but
Mhm.
don't fake the funk and try and become a rap star when you're not, when you don't like rap, you know.
Ooh.
And like as an example, Fall the Redemption is important to me. It's 56 seconds, but it's that beating on the table beat,
Mhm.
right? That you get
Yeah.
when you're beating on the lunch table and the surround noise and you just rapping until you go off your train of thought, right? And it's just a
Mhm.
real, that's a real moment. That's really how this fucking is,
Mhm.
you know?
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. I'm glad that that one registered. No one said anything about Fall Redemption thus far, like in like talking about it, but it's a really important song. Like it's an
Yep.
important
Yep.
piece, right? Especially where it falls, no pun intended, right between the songs that it falls between.
Yep.
It's like this sort of rising from the ashes in a way. And
Oh,
a sort of like me figuring out like, oh, like this feels good. You know what I mean? Like this, it was supposed to represent this very specific sort of time when I was 15 or 16, ciphering, and that adrenaline of getting those reactions and feeling like you're good at something
right.
too. You know what I mean? Like just feeling like you can excel at something is very important. Very important. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I love it. And it's what Def C was warning me about. At that moment was like, this guy can switch up. He can go fast. He can go slow. He can do whatever. Uh, he's really talented at rapping, and you have moments here that I just really love from an MC standpoint, right? Like, um, my favorite song on here is No Hobbyist.
Mm.
Uh, produced by Slumber Logic. And that's just a hard ass hip hop song, man. You know, that's not necessarily anything other than that. It's
Those.
a declaration, obviously, of like, this is what the fuck I do. Uh, but that kind of declaration, DMX had to do on his first album, right? Like, that's a shared journey. And you're in this doing that. So I think that's really dope.
Thanks, man. I
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Yeah. But yeah,
Yeah.
so the reason I think Life is a Masterpiece is interesting and important, it's more important than I remembered it from the first listen. I knew it was important on the first listen, but it was this season. I didn't have it in me. Everybody else was really struck by it. I was like building my shit. And now I'm having the chance to really engage with it. So when I heard the EP, right, that you did last year, and was, you know, really struck. I think I've lost it.
Mhm.
I was like, this is someone who does a lot of different things, right? Spoken
Mhm.
word is present. Um, you know, there's funky songs, there's hard songs, there's just a lot of different chambers here, and
Mhm.
a lot of different speeds and lengths of time with songs. And I was like, how is this going to work over a full album to not be too much for the listener,
Mm.
And Life is a Masterpiece to me does a great job of resolving that question.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's crazy.
K Diggy, what did you think going from I Think I've Lost It to Life is a Masterpiece? How did you feel about that change?
I thought that Life is a Masterpiece was more cohesive. I thought I saw it as a development of some of the I don't want to say ideas, but I think what's the best way to say it? Like the format that you were going for on the first project, I think it was much more realized in Life is a Masterpiece.
Yeah.
In terms of like, you know, the blending, you know, of the, I don't want to call them skits, but I guess it would be like passages from other like forms of art, I guess you could say. And it almost felt like a collage in a way. But in the first project, let me get the name of it so I don't keep referring it to as the first project.
I Think I've Lost It. Is the
Yes, I think I lost. Yes.
Yeah.
So like for me, like the, you know, the passages like that you got from other medias, they kind of like, I couldn't understand the connection between them. I couldn't understand exactly where you were going with it. But in terms of Life as a Masterpiece, I thought everything was more cohesive, and the passages I felt fit together better in the overall theme, and was really like gave like a direction for the project to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it kind of, I Think I've Lost It did what an EP should do though, and was like a killer sampler for
Mm-hmm.
what you can get from KillVonGard.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Especially because you got to think about this, K. This is someone who produces like what 90% of his projects.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah. I think this Liam is 8 out of 12, I think. Yeah. And then Lost It was, 8 out of 9.
Yeah. So you're also getting to know KVG, the producer, right? So you're getting to know both of these atmospheres, and like people that heard Tom Can't Sleep CP that you produced understand the producer KVG really well too. Which is very good. I
Thank
was
you.
just gonna say, yeah, the production side is really good.
Yeah.
Because everything is so vividly rendered.
Mm. That's cool.
Sometimes, like people get the idea that if they make a beat, no one can figure out how to enjoy that. It is very artistic,
Mm.
and maybe it is, but you'll end up enjoying it by yourself with like
Damn.
10 to 15 of your fans. So you find a way to vividly render these beats so they are still crunchy, satisfying ass beats.
Mm.
But to K Diggy's point about most skits on rap albums are brutally unimportant,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Brutally unimportant. And the
They
It
thing
almost
is,
Bad
says
name.
like relief, almost like, but that's funny because your skits, particularly one skit, and I don't even want to call them skit. But I guess we'll call them skits just for like the skits. Usually they're like relief, like okay, let's take a step away from the music, reset, come back. But there were
Right.
like some of the skits on the first project were just like, particularly one was like,
yeah,
like there was no reprieve. Like the skits were intense in themselves.
right.
Yeah.
And that's why I don't think they're interludes. These are interludes, right?
Interludes, yeah, okay, that's a
So it
better,
would be
yes,
different.
interlude. Thanks.
I think so. Yeah, one of the elements of hip hop is probably the trauma you have having wasted time hearing all these awful skits over and over again. But
Yeah.
these
Skits
are
have a bad name.
yep, these are interludes, and they are important to the journey of the album.
Mhm.
One of the things I put in the breakdown was, and it's just my time in the poetry scene, right? Me and my wife would always joke about Christ pose, right? That a lot of these spoken word performances, Kay, ended with the poet in Christ pose in front of the audience, just drinking it up. Yes.
Oh God. Oh God.
And so sometimes we would just hear the Christ pose in his voice. We'd be listening, be like, man, he already in Christ pose. Listen to that dude. Already.
Oh, that's
He got that shit
hilarious.
chopped. He's ready.
That's actually brilliant.
And so there's like honestly, most of the spoken word you're going to hear, most of the poetry you hear on hip hop albums is very much in Christ pose. I wrote a poem. It's very cool that I did that. And so these are not delivered that way. These are conversation.
Mm-hmm.
It's the opposite. These are incredibly conversationally delivered, but fucking poetic as shit.
Damn. Yeah, thanks, man. Yeah, no, that's something that I'm always very super, super hyper aware of in the recording process and the writing. I'm like, dude, we can't start getting into, fucking Mike Myers and So I Married an Axe Murderer, you know what I mean? Like we can't start getting into that meter of talking like this and like no. Bad.
Yep.
Bad. Well, my favorite teacher ever. I remember during our poetry unit, she was my 7th and 8th grade English teacher. I remember we were doing the poetry unit and one of my classmates went up to just read a poem from a book. And they did it in the roses are red, violets are blue thing. And she was like, stop. He was like, don't do that. She's like, don't fucking do that. And that stuck with me. And then obviously hearing, other examples of just like, I don't want to sound like that. I don't want to fucking sound like that, man. That sucks. Like, yeah, so that's always in my mind. That's the front of my mind. I don't want to Christ pose.
And I used to go the opposite. I just really enjoyed how addicted to tone of voice that poetry fans were. I just thought it was really funny. And so I remember our teacher was gone and we had a substitute. And the substitute was like, we're going to read Robert Frost. And I was like, man, I hate Robert Frost. This sucks. And I volunteered to read the poem and I read it the silliest, most like William Shatner ass way I could read it.
Shatner.
And like it gets fake dramatic and everyone was laughing at it. I was just like defeating the poem.
I love it.
I told the teacher about when he came back, he was so pissed.
You gotta fuck with the substitutes, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
You gotta fuck with the substitutes.
Like back in the day.
That's amazing.
So those are some of the elements, KD, I think that make this really different.
Yeah, I mean, I had a question. I did have a question about the interludes, like, because what it did show me was that you were a very thoughtful organizer. How did you, like, what's your process of organizing, the interludes that you interject into the project?
So the first album was like Dan said, like a sampler. I always like to say the first album was like a pilot, or it was the short. And then Liam is like the big budget, like somebody was like, here's some money, like make a full length, like make a movie, make a feature. Right. And so the first one was it wasn't like slapped together, but it was my first album. So I was just kind of like, I think this is how you're supposed to do it. And like, so I made all the songs separately and then started putting them together like track list wise. Like I think this is the order and I rearranged it a few times. But the interludes were always there already on the songs. Like they were there. And then with Liam, I made the whole album in a very linear fashion. I had tracks 1 and 2. Well, and the first for a while I had like tracks 1 through like 8. It was a completely different album.
Yeah.
And then I scrapped it. And then after I scrapped it, I added the end to track 1 where I'm doing the typing and I scrap it. Like that's, like it was very much yeah. And
So
then I restarted.
the suicide
Yeah.
is the old album.
Yes. The suicide, that was the
Wow.
first. Track 1 is the first. I wrote that song in 2019. That
Oh,
song's been around since 2019. Mm-hmm.
so it's
Yeah.
you letting go of that baby that you had, that like, because if you were to 2019, that means the idea of what that album can be keeps growing and growing, and you got Dr. Dre Detox in your head, and
Mm-hmm.
you were like, Dr. Dre's Detox jumps off the building.
Right. Basically. So, and also I just like,
Amazing.
I got better as a person. Like I went to therapy, stopped romanticizing, mental illness and, just all that shit. You know what I mean? Be like, oh, being alive is dope. Like being healthy is dope. You know what I mean? That arc, if you will. So I had that. Track 1's always been the intro, but then then I made Biopic. After I Think I've Lost It came out, because I was like, oh, people actually listen to this. Like I should write a song about like being surprised that people like my shit, and that's what Biopic originally was. And then so I had those 2 songs, and then I went to go hang out with the Garden State. And I was like, what do you think? And he was like, yeah, yeah, keep doing that. And then a couple weeks later, I had track 3 and 4. And then he was like, yeah, no, absolutely. Yes, keep doing that. And then I came back the next time and I had like 5 and 6, and he was like, I don't know about that. So maybe like take a step back, rewrite, like maybe rethink this. Okay. And then I went back to the drawing board. And that was the process. And then when it came time, I had up to like, caricature.
Yep.
Garden State was like, I think you need something kind of. I was like, I have this idea. Like, I have this song Caricature, and then I want to do a song called Portrait afterwards. That's very like, sort of like the opposite in a way. Like, it's just kind of like this honest, like, portrayal. And he was like, yeah, it's like sort of. And he just made the beat in front of me and sent me home with it. And that was it. And similarly, track 4, which is the one that the Garden State is on. Like I came over one of those days and I was like, hey, I think I want you on this. And he was like, yeah. And then he wrote it in front of me. And then just the next day he sent me it, the recorded version. Yeah. So basically I kind of just made everything as it came. And I don't know if that's rare or it seems like it. When I talk to people, they kind of just make a bunch of songs and then, but yeah, I made it in order. So yeah.
Wow.
So it was kind of just happening as it was happening. There was only a couple things like at the beginning of Portrait, there's this woman talking. And I had that quote written down, and I was like, I have like it in my mind like like a British lady, and like I could do a bad British accent, but I'm not like a lady. So like we just like went on one of those like AI voice generator sites and typed it in and just used that. So like there were some like decisions that happened in the recording process with Made by Leo, so it was all very, it was all crazy the way it all came together. And it's like hard to like reflect on it because it was such it consumed me for like 4 years of my life,
Right.
like, and it's kind of crazy that it's over now. Like I was telling somebody I've been kind of grieving Liam, because it's like it's over, I mean it's not, but it is for me at least.
Well, it's
Now
like
it's out there.
you moved your kid into college or whatever. Right? And you're just like,
Yeah.
see him occasionally, but it's never going to be the way it was. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so yeah, everything kind of happened as it happened.
That's crazy. Because there's always a part, and Kay can back me up here. one of the questions we're always trying to get to is, when did you know what this album was? Right? What there
Mhm.
was a song that you were like, more of that shit, and that was the heart of it. And it sounds like it was the new batch, the first of the new batch.
Pretty much. Pretty much. Yeah. I yeah, because I also like came to this conclusion that like I don't want to make the album where the protagonist like succumbs to the bad shit. Like I think I'm over that narrative. You know,
Yeah.
I don't want to portray that any longer. You know,
Right.
like I think we should move past that. Um, and you know, obviously, you know, some people can't escape that fate. But I'm like, if I have a choice in it, and it's you know my story that I'm writing here, I'm gonna choose to not do that. In a way, it's like Trent Reznor, Nine Inch Nails, the Downward Spiral is a
Oof,
huge
love it.
influence on this album, and it's sampled once or twice on here. I wouldn't say where, but obviously, this album, spoiler alert, ends with the suicide, right? It's the song "Hurt," which like isn't a Johnny Cash song. It's a Nine Inch Nails song, and it ends ultimately in the protagonist killing himself.
Yeah.
And well, I mean, I think they actually killed themselves on the track prior. But anyways, in a way, it's kind of like an alternate reality version of the Downward Spiral.
Right.
It's kind of like, what if it went a different way? You know, that's how I kind of see it. You know,
The
I
upward
didn't want
spiral.
to
Spiral upward.
the upwards, yeah, the upward spiral. Yeah. I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to tell the sad story, you know, but I wanted to tell a real story, you know. I
Right.
wanted to tell an honest story. But
That's a tough one because I I was I remember showing I had a short story that I wrote that was basically about um a wino locked up having a
yes.
philosophical argument with the jailer, right?
Mm,
And I showed someone in synagogue and they're like, yeah, it's a wino, he wouldn't be this smart. And I was like, the problem is you want me to write the world as ugly as you know it, and I want to
yeah,
write the world that I want,
yeah,
right? Like, so
yeah,
I'm not going to say, well, this character would be dumb, you know.
yeah. Come
I
on,
I
man.
want I want to hang out with interesting characters. I want these to be people that I'm interested in, So I'm going to write them, you know, to the top form, man. Like, yeah,
Yeah, it's such a that's such a thing of like you know these sort of stereotypes coming with like addicts, you know, like my uncle was an addict for 20 years, and it seemed like every time I would talk to a specific family member about him, it would be like with this disdain, like he wanted to be an addict, and I was like, no, like I'm like we know
right,
who he is, we know like who he is, but he's not him right now. You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
but he's not like a dumbass. He's not stupid. He doesn't want this. Like you know what I mean? Like you know I remember who he is, you know, like I that every time like addiction comes up, like I always I like tense up when people start talking because
yeah,
I'm like, where's this gonna go, you know, like
yeah, yeah.
anyways.
It's one of those
Yeah,
things. But to the heart of what you're talking about, beyond the individual like addiction, because this happens in all forms, racism, sexism, what we end up doing all throughout the creative process is assume down, right? Like, hey,
mm,
you can't write that. It's too smart. The audience won't understand it. Make it dumber, right?
mm,
You can't
mm.
you can't write women like that. Women don't act like that. Make them quieter, right? Like
Right,
it's
right,
everybody assumes down.
mm,
Knock those good characteristics down a bit because
right.
awful is where we're supposed to be at.
Yeah, and then you end up with a sanitized boring bullshit
Well,
fucking
and then you end up in a
cliche.
room full of people complaining about how awful art is.
Yeah, that's
Like, didn't you
crazy.
motherfuckers just tell me not to do my best like a second ago?
Fuck them. You gotta say fuck them, right,
Fuck,
Dan? Jesus.
fuck. Um,
Just write what you write.
yep. I'm clipping. This is gonna be the fucking trailer. Anyway, so um Yeah, I can. You know what? And because there's big things in this album that I want to talk to you about. Uh,
Mhm.
and I think number 3 is one of summer context, right?
Yes.
I reached out to you when I first heard this song. Uh, it's an important song to me, and I made my wife listen to it today,
Mm.
and she sat there like uh just still,
Mm.
and you could feel like the weight of it like going through her. And I was like, "What'd you think of the song?" And she was like, "It was disturbingly realistic."
Yeah.
And I was like,
Yeah.
having someone who's lived through that, like you made her feel all that again,
Mhm.
you know.
Mhm.
And I maybe on the surface that is not pleasant, but that is a superpower that you have.
Mhm.
Like that is a superpower. Not everybody can do that.
Yeah.
Um, okay, how do you feel about summer context before I get into my superpower discussion?
Yeah, I mean, I think it goes. It's something you struck a chord that was universal. Uh, because I think like certain people may not have gone through that specific situation, but they've gone through something similar, like that type of isolation, that type of feeling as like another, as an other. That is like a universal type of thing. So you wrote something specific that, to your experience, that could be viewed and felt universally, which
Mm.
I think is a great accomplishment in terms of in musical form.
Thank you.
You
What was the process? Because like to kind of tie back to what we were talking about at the beginning of how you wouldn't want art to be too pretentious or too like heavy handed. What
Mhm.
How did you strike like a balance? Like what was the tone that you were going for with this piece?
It was an accident. So I wanted to write a song about being fat, being a fat kid, the experience, right? And like
Mhm.
I knew I was going to draw heavily from that specific because the piece itself, not to get too inside baseball,
know,
is an amalgam of two events that took place, right? And I squished them together, like towards the end, the setting of the song. But like the idea of it happened all the time, right? Like,
right,
but
right,
I knew I wanted to write a song and I was going to use that sort of those feelings as the sort of like the center point and the point of reference. So I just started writing down like thoughts, like what do I want to touch on? Like I want to touch on this, I want to touch on this, and then I was like, okay, I have like bullet points, and I was like, let me just like write this all out because I've never said this before. Like I've never said this out loud before. Like I've never talked about this to anybody. So I'm like, I'm just gonna write this all out, and then once I'm done, I'll like get the ideas and I'll mine them from this, and we'll make a song. So it was gonna be a rap song, but then by the time I finished writing it, I was like, this is it. It's like
right.
this
This
is the
is
piece,
it. Yeah.
right? And I wish I had it still. I tore the pages out and I sent them to Khalid with his order of Liam because I every time I send him something, I send like a handwritten thing, and I was like, I think this deserves to go. So I don't have them anymore. But it was just one shot. I didn't scratch out anything. It was just all the way through, and that I was sitting right here, and then I turned right here, and I recorded it. And what you hear is that first take, and
Ah,
I recorded it, and then I immediately sat down and I did the sound design around it. I exported the wave, and then I lost the project file, so it just went away. And then when it came time to mix it, I used one of those AI stem splitter apps, and I split the vocal from the instrumental and gave it to made by Leo. And I was like, this is the best we could do because I don't think I could. I don't want to even try to recapture uh, that vibe tonally, vocally. I love how it
Right.
happened, and we're just going to use it as it is. So to answer your question, I don't know. It was a total accident, and it just so happened to work.
Mm.
It was just a very lucky accident.
Man,
Yeah.
it's an intense piece. I think one of the big things that struck me listening to it today was how it deals with the connectivity of fat people.
Mm.
Like,
Mm.
like the notion that your friend like doesn't call you fat, and or your family doesn't call you fat, but they find other fat people gross.
Right.
You know,
Right. Right.
like I remember sitting at a lunch table at a place me and Kay worked with a friend of mine who was like, "You imagine someone has sex with her? That's disgusting." And I
Ew.
was like, "No, I want everybody to have sex and have good sex. Like I want the world full of good consensual sex at the right ages, and that, that's like I don't understand." So that's a real thing, though, is like they don't think of you as part of that fatty army.
No.
They think of you as their friend. But if you didn't have that past, you know where you'd be.
Crazy. I think it's disgusting, and I find this a lot in the industry that I work in. It's full of a lot of pretty faces. The way that conventionally attractive people project their beauty standards on everything,
Yep.
it's fuck. It's terrible, and it does make me sick. And it happens a lot. And I'm just like, the fuck is wrong with you? Like, like you're. I'm inclined to think that you're a piece of shit. Like, just
Right.
it's gross, and like because I'm not I'm not a fat person per se anymore. I lost a lot of weight. I did that whole thing. Um, I'm able to, I'm not like I feel like I'm a double agent or something. You know what I mean? I'm like on both sides of it, because I'm obviously still a fat kid on the inside, like
Right.
that never goes away.
Mm.
My ultra sensitivity, and I think to speak to what Kay was saying and what you were saying too about this whole superpower thing, being
Mhm.
a fat kid makes you ultra aware of the cruelties of the world, like at a very early age,
Yep.
like immediately. Like as soon as I was 6, I was already aware of like how unfair it is and for the reasons it's unfair. And it just made me an empathy machine, if you will, immediately. And I always carry it with me, and I can't get rid of it, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. It's yeah. I mean, I think the superpower that I was thinking about, man, summer context is just the best example of it. But it's all throughout your projects. You and hold on to this, and I think this is going to be important. Is like you have a power when it comes to setting, right?
Mm.
So there are albums that have settings. Sometimes it's just a choice of beats that leads
Mm.
you to a feel, right? And that's
Mm.
cool. That's awesome. I love that. I love having a feel. Um, that's not what I'm talking about with you. You have the
Mm.
ability to build setting
Mm.
as an MC, as a vocalist, as an author, right? Like summer context is a setting that you
Yes.
create. It doesn't persist throughout the album. You create it, and then you create a new setting next song. You have the
Yeah.
ability to create settings, and it's like you said, it's that detail, right? It's the being at the water park and putting on your lotion and looking at the people as they go by, and like you you build the setting, or it's the typewriter and the suicide. It's the building of setting,
Mm.
and lots of rappers can flourish in an album that has settings, but about 10% of them are even interested in building a set.
Mm. Damn. To play.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great way to put it. Yeah. You
Yeah.
are willing to, like, you know, shuffle out the chairs in between the acts, right? And the curtain
Right.
and move it to the next scene. Takes place in a totally different place rather than just being like, another track, I'm rolling, you know? Um,
I can't do that. It's a good and a bad thing. It's hard for me to just. I've tried to sort of make like just a rap album where I'm just rapping, and I always sabotage it. Like it could never just be that. I've tried a lot. I can't. It just there's something inside of me that's always like you can't do that. So like yeah, it always
yeah,
has to be
there's
something
always going to be
more.
a party that's like, what is this about, really? You know?
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
and you'll find what it's about, even if it's not even supposed to be about it either. Um, KD, so does my setting thing make sense, or
Yeah, it does. And I think when I think about the first project, I think this may be it. Uh, I thought you're right. Like each song felt like a different setting, and maybe it was like too rapid. But I thought with this one, with Life is a Masterpiece, you're right. I think each song felt like a setting, but it kind of blended together in like a more cohesive way to me. So it was like we we had one act, and then we would go to act two, but we could still feel the remnants of act one as we go into act two. You know what I mean?
yeah,
So there's more like a cohesive connectiveness for me that really like kind of resonated with me a lot more. And that's why you can have like something where you have like a summer context, but then have a part of the album where you're talking about Charlie Parker and you're sampling Whiplash, and it all connects, you know?
yeah. I mean, and in the breakdown, I think I might have said something about, like, great directors are great not just because they care about the characters and the cast, but because they care about what color the car is driving, and
Mm-hmm.
what the street looks like, what the extras look like. You know, you have to have that kind of freakishly detailed mentality. Um, and in terms of authorship, yeah, you're the maximized level of that.
Yeah, that's crazy. Thank you for saying that. That's fucking awesome. Yeah. I think there was a moment, and it's somewhere written in my phone, but I during the making when it was really in the heat of making this, I would obviously go to sleep and I'd be thinking about it. It would guide me to sleep, basically. I'd be thinking about where now. And it's like I was in this void for a lot of it. And then I forget what song, but it was probably about the midway point. I remember going to sleep and then waking up the next day and writing down, like, this album has a smell, you
Yep,
know?
yep.
I could smell it now. Like I could feel like I know what the walls feel like, like it started to really take on life. And I really felt this world unfolding before me for real. And that was crazy. That was some other wild shit. And I was in that for a long time.
And I think that's what, like, the impact of this for people that are looking to make music like this is like, holy shit, if I pay enough attention to every second of this, to how it transitions, to where people are, to where I'm putting the audience, where the camera is, like, I can really make exactly what I want, and
Right.
they'll understand exactly what I need.
That's the thing. Right. If you know exactly what it is you're shooting for, you'll know what tools to reach for. You'll know what lens you need.
Yep.
You'll know, you know what I mean? Yeah. And this all has to do with my sort of like fascination with film, right? Like, um, like I originally I remember like wanting to go to film school. That was my thing. Like when I was like 18, because I wanted to be a rapper, but like I couldn't tell my dad that. I'm like, I'm gonna go to film school, and he still thought it was fucking stupid. But
Right, right.
but I was like, at least I can go to school for that. Like I can't go to school for fucking rapping. Like at least not that I know of. So I applied to Columbia Film School, didn't get in. So it's like, well, shit, man. But I was always fascinated to try to make films, and it's always something that I've dabbled in with friends and stuff like that, making little funny videos and shit. And now me and the Garden State and my buddy Ray, like we've gone through this sort of like 20s figuring out how to do the things that we want to do, and there's going to be a lot more of that to come, film type stuff and video elements. um so I'm really excited about that, and I'm glad that I was able to sort of marry these worlds together in a non-corny way, because there's a
Right.
fine line, man.
Yep.
Super fine line. And I think like a lot of it is like just like the influence of like Good Kid Mad City, which is a movie,
Yep.
and like
Yep.
Pimp a Butterfly, also a movie, different, but a movie. But Billy Woods, Hiding Places is a movie to me.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Hiding Places is the most important album, I think, to me, probably. All the Woods albums to me are fucking, especially like from 2017 till now, movies. Yeah.
I always say the one on Hiding Places that still like it's first thing I think of is Steak Knives,
Hmm. Hmm.
because it's so short and it's so impactful. That is another person that is just dynamically building setting.
I mean, he's yeah, probably at the front of my mind when I'm employing those tactics.
Right.
It's him. It's him. Simply that. Terror Management. There's the song where at the end of the song, he's like seeing his friend who just got home from jail, and they're at the mom's house, and she won't look at him. What is that? Trivial Pursuit.
Damn.
Fuck, that's dude. Trivial Pursuit, Steak Knives, two very brief songs that just fucking kill you.
Yeah.
And they paint these pictures, and it's just obviously we don't need to go on about Woods forever, but I mean we could. But
No,
fuck.
yeah. It's awesome, and it's awesome to hear about it within the perspective of what's going on. But I just also wanted to mention I really love all the features on Liam, and I think one of the people I think I want everyone to pay a lot of attention to in this space, right? Because I'm talking about how important you are within this
Mhm.
space. Love Ulysses is incredibly important in this space. And I think and this verse is a great example, right?
Man.
Because the ability that I don't know who else does this as well, but the ability to build and release tension over and over again. A meditation on reason, track 6. To build tension, release it, be laughing, build more tension, release. He just, it's amazing.
Dude, it blows me away. He's truly awe-inspiring. Like I can't believe that I know him. You know what I mean?
Yep.
I feel privileged to even be for him to even know who I am. You know what I mean? Like it's crazy. He's so fucking good. It's
So good.
it's fucked up, dude.
You agree with that as a superpower of like you'll be laughing with him, like you're sharing a joke, and then
Oh
he'll
yeah.
give you the hardest, ugliest thing in his life, and you're just like, oh my god, and then he's back to laughing again, or like it's
Yeah, and that's just him. That's his character. Like if
right,
you text him, it's the same thing. You know what I
right,
mean?
right.
Like him and I bounce around from laughing about toilet humor to like me saying some heavy shit, him saying some heavy shit, but then it's like I don't know. He's just like he's like just the human experience in a person,
Yep.
and
Yep.
he like and he just like explains it so well. He's just a very wise person, You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean,
And he's crazy.
you learn so much just listening to a song of his, because
Right.
of all this tension and the release of tension and like the responsible directing you through his life. Um,
I
yeah,
just can't believe that he even comes up with some of this shit. Like, and also the dance ability to his shit. Like, I was in the
Yep.
gym. I texted him. I was deadlifting this morning, and Twitch channel came on the shuffle, and I was like, "Fuck yeah!" I was like, "This is fucking crazy," you
that's
know?
awesome. That's
Right?
awesome.
And but then you know, between sets, I'm like, "Holy shit! I can't believe he just said that." Like, he said something about chauvinism, and then Derek
Yep.
Chauvin, and I'm like, he's nuts. He's wild.
He's yeah. I mean, it's just the ability he has so much. It's so much fun listening to him.
It's so much. There's so much to chew on. Like, it's
Yeah,
never ending.
yeah.
He's so good at rapping, and just he's an unbelievable. And his
You never
production,
felt like you're in a very special episode and you need to like, pay tides and pay attention. If you always feel like, oh, we're jamming here, but then you're like, oh, like,
it's
yeah,
so much fun. It's
yeah,
so much fun,
yeah.
and it's full of surprises. He knows how to hold your attention so well. What a fucking guy! I love that dude. I feel like, and I met him in person at the end of last year.
Oh man,
And like when we met, I was just like, yeah, no, like it was just like I've known him forever. Like there was no weird awkwardness. Like, you know,
right.
he got in my car and he was like, "You're a real person." And I was like, "Yeah." And then we just like spent the weekend just being best friends, you know?
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
I love that dude. Yeah,
That's great. No, I mean,
unbelievable.
it's any other features struck you, Kay, that you wanted to talk about?
I mean, Def C was,
Ooh, caricature.
yeah.
Yeah,
That's
dude.
a different speed. I felt like he was more deliberate on that song and more like he wanted it to be impactful. I really enjoyed that.
Hmm.
The Def C verse was written to a different beat originally.
Yeah.
I sent him a song that was on the original Life is a Masterpiece
Oh,
called
okay.
Titans.
Yep.
And it was a very slow, emotional, jazzy, but like sad jazz beat.
Yep.
And then and then I was like, this song is whack, but this fucking verse from Def C is impeccable.
Right.
So it will still be on here. And then I was like, oh, this kind of makes perfect sense. Like caricature, like this is perfect, and like just the placement of it. And because he's
Yeah.
sort of the teacher, you know what I mean? For him to come
Right.
in afterwards and just sort of be like this guiding light in the way. And he sounds like he's in the sky, you know? He's a giant, you know,
Yes.
he's a titan in himself, right?
Yep.
It takes place like you're flying through the fucking sky, and then all of a sudden you come to a stop and it's Def C looking down on you, just being the best rapper. What a presence on the mic
Absolutely.
and in person. It's
Yeah.
quite startling. Yeah.
No, it's great. And Kay, how do you feel about the end? The end of the album. The end is pretty intense.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was denouncement. I thought it was like a fitting, because the first project was 22 minutes. This was almost double the length of I think This Is It. So I thought it was like a fitting ending to like and I like that you used the word play. Like I thought it was a fitting ending to the play.
Yeah, you just looked at the audience and said, "Here's how we're going to try and conduct ourselves." Right? Like,
Yeah.
how about we try it this way and see how it goes, and then that was awesome. I dug it.
Yeah, I want to try to leave it on a ambiguous note. You could take those last words in a couple different ways, you know?
Right.
Like because I've heard some people be like, it gives me hope, and then I've heard some people be like, I'm kind of scared
Right.
for like what's like this doesn't actually sound all that peachy.
Mm,
You know what I mean? And
What?
you're just gonna have to wait till the next one.
yep.
Because I wanted to ask you, because you mentioned that you wanted to go to film school. What are some films that kind of have inspired you as a musician?
So generally, as a musician, that's kind of a tough one, right? Like
Mhm.
Quentin Tarantino was like the brain opener when I was like a teen. I didn't discover him until I was like 17. And
Mhm.
then that coincided with me being like, oh, this is fucking cool. I want to do this. You know what I mean? So he was like the first like filmmaker that I was like, because before that I was just kind of watching whatever came out. I didn't care about the director. I didn't look at
Right,
credits,
right.
and I'm just seeing this movie. Um, but I can speak to this project specifically.
Mhm.
There's a few movies, and that would be Adaptation, which I sample on track one,
Hmm.
Being John Malkovich, The Truman Show, uh, Birdman is like the biggest one.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And that's like, once I say it, you're like, oh yeah, right.
Yeah.
Um, Whiplash, obviously, I sample it. I wouldn't say it was a huge influence on the record. I mean, in a way, maybe like in a roundabout way, it was probably in the back of my head just because of the themes that are present in that film
Right.
about like, is it worth it? You know what I mean? Like what the fuck? Like
Right.
for what?
Right.
Right? Um, but I think like generally like the films that really like strike me are just like those sort of like late 90s when Y2K was on the cusp and everyone was kind of like worried and confused and questioning everything. So you get like those movies like Malkovich and Truman Show where everyone's like, what's going on? Like
Strange days, buddy. Strange days.
you know what I'm saying? So yeah, but I'd say Birdman, and not only for this album, but just in art in general. I saw that movie in 2014 when I was very confused about life and just dropped out of community college and was basically kicked out of my dad's house and confused and angry and just like, what the fuck am I doing with my life? And Birdman was, I just remember seeing it and being like, that makes a lot of sense. But like every time I watch it, there's like 3 to 4 years in between, or like 2 years, and I'm at a different point in my life. And then I watch it, and I'm like, oh, that makes sense for different reasons.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like somebody who I thought was like kind of like a good guy last time is kind of an asshole now.
Right,
And someone
right,
who I
right.
thought was an asshole makes a lot of sense. I just think that movie's like unbelievable. Uh, I can go on all day about it.
That's
But
awesome.
yeah, yeah.
Tell me about
Clerks too. Sorry, Clerks as
Clerks.
well.
Clerks is great.
Kevin Smith in general. I won't launch into it, but that's a story for another time. But like, look at what I wear, kind of like I
Right.
wear the jacket and
Makes
the hat,
sense.
and
Yep.
yeah. But anyways, go ahead. Sorry.
Tell me about Leo and Garden State and their impact on this process in your sound.
I mean, so to start with Garden State, I've known him since I was 15, right? He went to high school with some friends of mine, and I remember just him coming to my neighborhood one weekend to just hang and and I was sort of in my neighborhood and my friend group. I was kind of like singular in that like Vince does the rapping thing and like it's awesome at parties, and he does that and it's awesome and it's fun and it's cool, and but like whatever. I didn't really have a lot of peers in that, maybe one or two who were also trying to do that. So when I met the Garden State, like we just clicked immediately, and I like couldn't believe that he existed because like he like had an album when we were 15. He like had an album on Hot New Hip Hop that he
It's
made himself, and it was great. It was so good, and I was like, I can't believe that you have an album. Like I can't even finish a song. I could
right,
write a
right.
verse full of punchlines maybe, but like you have an album with songs and choruses and like concepts and all that. That's crazy. So I've been looking up to the Garden State since I was 15 years old. And I felt like he was always just like so far ahead of everything in all respects. And if you look at, what he's done, he's always ahead of the curve. But so we kind of disconnected, not disconnected, but like we went, he went to college, I did my thing, had my jobs, life happens, but we were still creating. during that time, but like we would maybe talk once, twice a year or something, you know. And then I think I've Lost It came out, and I remember he called me the week after it came out, and he was like, "What the fuck?" And like we talked for like 2 hours.
It's awesome.
uh and because he had seen all the stuff I'd done previously, which was like a song here or there that I would put on SoundCloud, and like it was really nothing. So for me to go from that to making like a full album, he was like, "What the hell is this? Like, talk to me." And then we basically talked almost every day for the next year and a half. And then I started going over by his house like every couple of weeks. And, you know, I showed him the first two songs. Then I went back, showed him a few more, showed him a few more. And probably halfway through, I was like, I was like, you're like you're EPing this, right? Like this is what executive production is, right? He was like, yeah, I think so. And I was like, okay, I'm just making sure because like that's how
Yeah.
I'm gonna credit you on this because like
Right.
he was like my North Star, you know. Um, he's just such a historian and he has such an understanding of music and culture at large.
Yeah.
That like he could sort of take my frustrating ball of something and sort of stretch it out and put it on the wall and be like, is this what you mean? Kind of. And I could be like, yeah, but like maybe, you know, like he was just really good at like helping me through a lot of these ideas.
Right. Right.
Invaluable. And he actually ended up coming down to Atlanta with me, which is where Leo lives. And we recorded the album. And yeah, Made by Leo is just like the album isn't what it is without him. You know what I mean?
No,
Like
I mean
it's
the impact on the setting is real. You know, like this is yeah. Uh albums that Leo does sound very different from anything anybody else does.
it's very true.
It's really impactful. So I
Yeah.
didn't want to go through this without
Right.
shouting
No,
out.
yeah.
Yeah.
He's the endless. My thanks for him are endless. Yeah, I implore anybody making rap music to rap music or not, hit him up because like he'll make your shit sound pro, pretty much.
Amazing. Amazing.
Yeah.
Kate, do you have anything else?
No,
Hey, is
no,
beating the shit out of me in fantasy basketball this week.
it's an off week.
Injuries, bro. I got injuries coming out of my ear.
Yeah.
Ridiculous. But we're ready. Recommendation corner.
Oh,
Let's get into it. I wanted to lead with the underappreciated Pharma Beats. I love Pharma Beats. Pharma Beats and Shoddy have an album together called Nothing Changed Except Everything. And it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. It's really cool. Yeah, I really enjoy it. Yeah, there's good vibe on it. The other one, Good Guys Don't Wear White by Sequence and Old Boy. Sequence, it's got Blue on there, Sleep Sinatra, Taylor Banks, a Green Slime verse that I just adore.
man.
Green Slime is so crazy. Yeah, it's awesome. And Kay, have I told you about Mo Colors?
No.
Okay. It's a album's called Original Flow, and it hasn't come out yet. It's going to come out in March. But the pre-order's up and some songs are out. And it's Mo Kolous, right? Two words. And it is like a combination of like reggae and jazz and like rapping spoken word with a Nigerian flavor with like Nigerian Gil Scott Heron moments. Uh, just a really crazy like Nigeria way of UK. It's just a real dope individual. These songs are just in my head. Um, yeah, I'm really excited for it to come out. If you go on YouTube, you can look up "Rockets to Mars," and it's a really dope video. Really good song. A lot of good congas and everything. Just everything's dope in that.
Okay.
So those would be my recommendations. Yeah. KillVonGard, what are you listening to?
Oh, so I was talking to Tom Can't Sleep about this yesterday. Since becoming a rapper per
Yep.
se,
Yep.
right? A
Yep.
practitioner really and releasing stuff into the world. Um, Something happened where I have trouble now listening to new rap music, and I don't know exactly what it is. I don't know if it's because I know how the sausage is made and like on a deeper level now, and
Yeah.
I'm just like I'm comparing it to what I'm working on, or like I'm analyzing it too much, like, oh, I would have did this, I would have did that, I would have did that. But so it's been kind of hard for me to enjoy, unfortunately, new rap music. The new ASAP Rock was dope. Um, but I've been kind of like venturing out for a while now and just like listening to completely other random shit. There's this group from Flint, Michigan called Greet Death.
Awesome.
Dude, it's like heavy shoegaze, emo, beautiful wall of guitars. Are you familiar?
No, it sounds awesome.
Dude, they're so crazy. I highly recommend. They have an album called New Hell,
Mhm.
which is just perfect. It's a perfect album. So that's one. And then another recommendation I would say is Garden State affiliate Say Loon, Sayelune.
Hmm.
Yeah, not I don't think he has anything on streaming, but there's a couple things on YouTube. I'll send it to you,
Mhm.
Dan.
Yep.
Yeah, there's a song called Demo Daisy Dukes Left in the Dust featuring the Garden State. It's got a crazy music video. I don't even know, he's in another country. It's in black and white. I can't even explain exactly what's going on and like what exactly it is that Saloon does, but all I can tell you is that like he touches so many different styles and just has one of the most, I think, interesting and unique voices of a singer I've ever heard. And it's just straight art, like it's just
Amazing.
so. And I know that there's some good shit coming from Saloon in the form of an album, hopefully this year. So I'll send that to you, Dan, and you definitely check him out,
Oh, definitely.
follow him.
Yeah.
Yeah, stay in the know about that. Yeah.
I will. I have to confess, Kay. There's that period. We're in that pocket of like post list season. Like a lot of the major releases haven't ramped up yet,
Mhm.
and like I'm catching up from all stuff I missed in 2023. Like, um, one of my biggest one so far is a country album, Zach Bryan,
Oh.
ZACH, and I love it. I love it. It's great. It's almost like a Springsteen album, honestly. It's
He's not the one. Did he cover Fast Car? Is that Zach
no, that's
Bryan?
Luke Combs.
Luke
That's Luke
Combs.
Combs,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
Yeah.
So, sorry to anyone if I offended. I don't know my
No,
country
no,
singers
you're
that
good.
well.
You're good. It's an ugly world. I'm not gonna lie. The country ugly world, but I really dig this album, and yeah, just try and engage with it.
Okay.
Doing it. So yeah, and I'm watching One Piece, one episode
Oh,
at a
wow.
time.
Really?
The old cartoon One Piece. Like
Holy shit.
I'm on episode 51 of 53 of the first season.
Wait, are you actually gonna watch every episode? Because I know that it's like 60% filler. Are you like trying to skip filler, or are you watching
No,
everything?
no, I'm watching. I'm watching every episode.
Wow. Man,
But I'm not
enjoy that.
binging. I'm not binging. I watch
Right.
one episode a day at lunch.
Oh, nice. Because
Whatever.
yeah, they're like 20
Yeah,
minutes, right?
yeah. I'm just
Yeah.
gonna yeah.
Good work.
So I might be watching One Piece for the next 10 years. You know?
Yeah, that's kind of cool though. You know?
Yeah, okay. There's like 50 episodes a season, and there's like 10 seasons.
There's so many. I've
It's-
never watched it, but I just have a friend who's super into it.
Yeah. It's been fun to talk in the Discord about it, but yeah, they've all seen the rest, so they're like, don't get too excited. The character's gonna change. And I'm like, all right. So it's been great. Yeah. Kay, what you been listening to? What have you been doing?
I did listen to the Kid Cudi album Insano that came out.
Is it Insano or Insano?
No, it's
Is it
that was okay. That was cool.
Who's not bad?
And then in terms of animation, I don't know if I mentioned this before, but like I'm going back to the Batman animated series.
Oh, I love the Batman anime. Talk to me.
Ooh.
Like I mean, I remember watching it as a kid, and it just didn't like I didn't get it. I didn't resonate with me. But you know, going back and watching it as an adult, like it was really, I mean, it was really ahead of its time.
Crazy ahead of its time. I was having my Mask of the Phantasm, boy. I remember I had my kid watching that when he was real young, and my wife was like, "This is not a kid's show." I'm like, "It is technically a kid's show." And there was one time he might have been 2 or 3. I was putting him to bed, and he goes, "Daddy, sometimes the cops are good guys, sometimes the cops are bad guys." And it was because he was watching that show, and I was like, "Yeah, keep that in mind."
I think I saw a Def C tweet a couple of years ago about that because he had started rewatching it, and he was like, "There's a reason why my whole generation doesn't trust politicians and police." And
I think he said like it's how I learned not to trust rich people.
Oh yeah, something like that. Yes, yeah.
And it was just like because every rich person, like Bruce Wayne, can't even control these rich people. Like they're all just doing crazy, freaky shit. You know,
They really are.
great show. That was like the Wire of animated.
Oh yeah,
hero show.
and I mean, it's wild to me to think that they were showing that, you know, weekday afternoons, like at like
Crazy.
3 o'clock, 4 o'clock.
If you can find it, Kay, there's a crazy one of my favorites is like, you know, there's just 2 major mobsters in town, right? That are always feuding.
Okay. Yes. Okay.
And one of them is like being secretly hunted by the other. Batman's trying to help him, but get him to like take the stand on the other mobster.
Yes.
You know what I'm talking
Yes.
about?
I remember that. Right. Yes. I watched that. I watched that episode because there was an episode in season 1 with those. I mean, that
He's like thinking
That
about
was,
his
like,
childhood and
crazy.
shit.
Yeah.
He's like, it's like fucking deep, bro. That shit is
Yeah.
deep.
I mean, it's just wild. It was nice to see like them respecting the intelligence of their audience and
Yeah,
you know the kids of the nation. That
I remember coming back after school and watching that shit and being like, fuck. Like it was real wild. It was like, yeah, that was influential. So I'm glad you're doing that. Yeah. Thank you, KVG, for being here with us. It was awesome to think with you and to really hear what went into this. I'm super excited for your takeover. KillVonGard.
Thanks for having me. Nice to meet you, Kay. And thank you so much.
Nice to meet you, man.
Absolutely.
Yeah, man.
What will tomorrow bring? What will tomorrow